Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJA Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and music, blessing, and community every weekday. We've been doing so since March 18th, 2020. Today it is Friday, July 11th, 2025. That is more than 5 years, almost 5.5 years of Torah every single weekday morning, no matter where we are, to say good morning to each other by name. So Cynthia and Bentzi, Rabbi Wasser, so nice to see you, my friend. Jennifer and Susie, Tara, Michael, Boker Tov. Hi, Susan. Jennifer and Jack. Good to see all of you. Erev Shabbat Shalom, my friend. Good to see you. Linda and Arlene. Peter sending love to Frankfurt. Barry, good to see you. Michael, good morning. Nice to see you too. Cecile, Chana sending love to you in Eretz Israel. Really, so honored that you anchor us in our holy, holy home. Rosa, good to see you. Hi, my beautiful wife. Good to see you, my love. Jonathan and Deborah, Andrew and Arlene, Nathalia, good morning. Natalie and Diane, Amy, Boker Tov. Good to see everybody. Catherine, sending love to you in Australia. Joyce and Ashley, good morning. And hi, Lydia. Hi, Jacqueline. All right, let's take a breath. Hi, Corinne. Good to see you too. Debbie, welcome. Hi, Ron. All right, let's take a breath. Sing a bracha, learn some Torah. Sion, it's good to have you back live. Hi, friends. Hope that you are doing well, that you're getting ready for Shabbat. For some of us, for in Israel, like Chana is, it is just about Shabbat. Not sure what time it is in Australia. Catherine, you let us know. Or Peter, let us know in Frankfurt. Shabbos is coming. What a gift. It's broadcast 1,343. It is day 644 since October 7th. There's a lot to talk about, always is. I want to point to one very specific part of this parsha. And Minna, Mazel Tov on your grandson's wedding on Sunday. Thanks for sharing that with us. Today's Torah is in honor of your family's joyful moment. Their Simcha. Mazel Tov. So in this week's parsha, Balak, we've been talking about how Bilam, the prophet, is hired to curse Bnei Israel. And we've talked about how the Torah takes his power seriously. We've talked about how the donkey was able to speak and see what a prophet could not. We've spoken about how curses should be caught midair and stopped whenever they appear. But what we haven't done yet, friends, and I'm going to wade into territory that is a little bit more dicey in this conversation. What we haven't talked about is the power of words that aren't uttered by a biblical prophet, but words themselves. You know that word choice matters. This is not the contrast between the curses Bilam was hired to say and Matovu Ohalecha, how beautiful are your tents. This is sometimes the nuance of words. Think about words that sound wrong, that didn't used to, how sensitivity around those words are actually really important. In today's political climate, the erasure of people's preferred pronouns actually is a stand in for the erasure of their identity. Words matter. We know this is the case. And whatever Bil'am was going to say would have mattered. So let's focus on that for today as we get ready for Shabbos. As we think about using Lashon Naki, good, clean language, even if people speak in salty ways and use curses here and there to let out frustration or sometimes just to be funny, those are dependent upon context. But some words don't depend on context. Some words don't. Some words and phrases are just simply unacceptable. So, when on PBS, the chair of the Democratic National Committee was asked about a candidate for office representing the Democratic Party who uses the phrase globalize the intifada, I listened for what the response was going to be, as I'm sure everyone does. Because regardless of which party you call your own, if you call a party your own, language matters. And it doesn't matter which side of any aisle someone is sitting on if they speak words of hate. And the question was really important. It was phrased well. You can find it on YouTube. The journalist asked, there are people seeking office in your party who use phrases that make people scared, including the phrase globalize the intifada. And the response from the chair was, you won't find me agreeing 100% with really any candidate for office. That I understand. But we are a tent that is big. We have, he said, conservative Democrats and centrist Democrats and progressive Democrats, and now this new form, he said, of leftist Democrats. But his answer conflated the acceptable parameters of political discourse to include a threat of genocide against the Jews. Because that's what those words mean. The intent sometimes matters, the context sometimes matters. But some words are unacceptable no matter what the context is. And that phrase, which I will not say again, because it is blasphemy against my own people, against my family, is not part of any tent. It must be marginalized, just as hatred of any kind must always be marginalized. When people were chanting in Charlottesville years ago, Jews will not replace us, they were channeling the worst part of a forged document called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is an anti-Semitic tract. And they were shouting, Jews will not replace us. And even if the context was radically different, those words are never acceptable. It is not fine people who say such things. And I bring this to our attention not because you aren't already seeing it in the headlines, but because I'm a rabbi. And not only do I represent our people in my teaching, not only do I represent our Torah in my teaching, I also cannot stand idly by when someone validates hateful language of any kind. We did so when George Floyd was murdered. We called out any validation, any excuse. How can we not do so for ourselves? Words matter. What Bil'am, the prophet, was going to do was throw words at us. And it was important enough that God stopped it mid-air and turned it into a blessing. I'd like to share two thoughts about words that I've looked up because I wanted to have voices that were not mine, not in response to the politics, but in response to the concept. Because words matter. So this is a comment that you can find on Keshet Online. It's a wonderful organization. UJA is part of supporting, and my wife and I have been supporters for a very long time of the sacred work creating an LGBTQ network for young Jews and older Jews, transforming our language, our customs, our ritual, our community for the better. And so this is a comment on the Torah portion that you can find on Keshet's website. This one is written by Jeremy Schwartz. And listen to this from Jeremy's perspective. As members of the queer community, we might keep this story, the story of Balaam, in mind as we encounter hate speech and as we lobby for equal rights. Words, no matter how ugly or how beautiful, are limited in power. Actions can speak louder. At the same time, small differences in language have much to say about the intentions and ideas behind words. Organizations such as GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, work to ensure fair and accurate representation of LGBTQ people in the media, precisely of this link between words, ideas, and actions. As a case in point, the legal difference between marriage and civil union may be minimal, but the effect of this small legal difference on the integration and acceptance of queer families into society may be great. Our language, friends, matters. When we hold ourselves to the lofty standards of being a mensch, even and especially when we are in pain, that standard is meant to be a universally applied one. Our dignity and every person's dignity, every image of God, deserves defending. The way in moments of great tension over the last 21 months, we have spoken not only of the need to defend ourselves and to rescue our beloved hostages and to defend the boundaries of the state of Israel, but also the sanctity of life in Gaza that Hamas has exploited, massacred, and forced the degradation of. We use our words as carefully as we can, knowing that they will be imperfect, but we are called to do no less for ourselves. And that hateful phrase has no place in politics, has no place on our campuses, has no place in discourse. I am grateful to the journalist for bringing up the question, and I am ashamed of the chair of the Democratic National Committee for not just a tepid answer, but for giving hate a platform. It is unacceptable. Now, I close with someone else's words. Someone who understood that the dignity of difference is the only way to bring about a world that is less fractured. I'm, of course, referring to two titles of books written by the majestic Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory. He was looking into this parsha and trying to figure out how to talk about language. He was looking for the hardest words. And he was talking specifically in this comment that you can find on his website, that his family has maintained, thank God, that words even around rehabilitation of the self can be hard. So this is how he closes his comment. I won't give you the whole context, but you can find it on rabbisacks.org. I spent the day in a rehabilitation center, he says, and it was heartbreaking. The young people there, they were aged between 16 and 18, all came from broken families. Many of them had suffered abuse. Other than the workers at the center, they had no networks of support. The staff were exceptional people. Their task was mind-numbingly difficult. They would succeed in getting the addicts to break the habit for days, weeks at a time, and then they would relapse, and the whole process would have to begin again. I began to realize that their patience was a little less than a human counterpart of God's patience with us. However many times we fail and have to begin again, God does not lose faith with us, and that gives us strength. We here are people doing God's work. And now listen to how Rabbi Sacks closes his reflection based on that tender, hard experience. I asked the head of the center, Rabbi Sacks says, a social worker, what it was that she gave the young people to make a difference to their lives and give them the chance to change. I will never forget her answer because it was one of the most beautiful I ever heard. We are probably the first people they have met who care for them unconditionally. And we are the first people in their lives who cared enough to say no. No, Rabbi Sachs writes, is the hardest word to hear, but it is also often the most important and the sign that someone cares. This is what Bilam, humbled, eventually learned, and what we too must discover if we are to be open to the voice of God. So, friends, I ask you to join with me in saying that hardest word. To any time hate is given platform. No. This word matters too. No. No. Words matter. And it's time to say no. And friends, if words matter, I ask you to offer these words with me on behalf of our beloveds who we want home. Send your hearts to the east and realize that these words carry much more than consonants and vowels. They carry our souls way beneath the surface so that our beloveds know that we care. Words matter. These are prayerful words I ask you to share with me. Kol hod balevav pnima nefesh Yehudi homia ulefatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion tzofia od lo avda tikvateinu התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון Virushalayim. Bring them home now. Am Yisrael Chai. Shabbat Shalom, friends. See you on Monday.